और मान्यवर विश्वकर्माओं के लिए भी काम कर। अभी मान्यवर ये बात मैं बहुत संवेदनशील होकर के आप सदन के सामने रखता हूं। लोकसभा में चर्चा हो रही थी, कांग्रेस पार्टी के एक वरिष्ठ सदस्य ने कहा सावरकर के लिए जो उन्होंने उद्गार निकाले मैं तो रिपीट नहीं कर सकता। मान्यवर सावरकर जी के सामने जो वीर लगा है ना, वो कोई सरकार, कोई पॉलिटिकल पार्टी की चुनी हुई सरकार ने नहीं दिया है। इसके सामने वीर उनकी वीरता के कारण 140 करोड़ लोगों ने। मान्यवर ऐसा उत्कृष्ट देशभक्त जिसके लिए ऐसे उच्चारण देश की सबसे बड़ी पंचायत में होते हैं, इसके बारे में कोई जानकारी लिए बगैर लगातार कई सालों से झूठ फैलाया जाता है। मैं आज रिकॉर्ड पर कहना चाहता हूं मान्यवर, 1857 से लेकर 1947 तक के स्वतंत्र संग्राम में किसी भी व्यक्ति को एक जीवन में 2 आजीवन कारावास हुए हैं तो वो वीर सावरकर। मध्य दरिये में देश को आजादी दिलाने के लिए टॉयलेट तोड़कर दरिया में छलांग लगाने का साहस किसे में था तो वीर सावरकर। एक ही जेल में 2 भाई काला पानी की सजा काट रहे थे, 10 साल तक भाई एक दूसरे को देखे नहीं। ऐसा वीर परिवार पूरे देश में दूसरा नहीं। मान्यवर आज सावरकर जी की एक उक्ति में यहां पर कहना चाहता हूं। उनका एक मराठी में वाक्य है, तुझ साठी मरण ते जनन, तुझ बिन जनन ते मरण। इसके आगे है, हे मातृभूमि तेरे लिए मरण मृत्यु ही जीवन है और तेरे बिना जीवन मेरे लिए मृत्यु से भी कठिन। ये देशभक्ति के वाक्य जिस व्यक्ति के मुंह से निकले, इसके लिए इस प्रकार की सदन में चर्चा करते हैं, सार्वजनिक रूप से बोलते हैं और गर्व महसूस करते हैं। क्या देशभक्ति कोई विचारधारा के साथ जुड़ी हो ही सकती है? देश के प्रति बलिदान किसी धर्म के साथ जुड़ा हुआ हो सकता है? किस प्रकार के स्तर पर हम देश के सार्वजनिक जीवन को ले गए हैं मान्यवर, और हमारी तो न माने, हमारी न सुने। सुनिए, आप हमारी न माने, हमारी न सुने, हमको न स्वीकारे, मगर मैं इंदिरा जी के 2 वाक्य कोट करना चाहता हूं। एक, उन्होंने 1966 में सावरकर जी के निधन पर कहा, सावरकर एक महान व्यक्ति थे, उनका नाम साहस और देशभक्ति का पर्याय है। एक महान क्रांतिकारी जिन्होंने अनगिनत लोगों से को प्रेरणा देने का काम किया, इंदिरा गांधी तत्कालीन प्रधानमंत्री। दूसरा, श्री बाखले को पत्र लिखा था कि आपका पत्र मुझे मिला, वीर सावरकर द्वारा ब्रिटिश सरकार के प्रति साहसी प्रतिरोध का हमारे स्वतंत्रता संग्राम के इतिहास में अपना एक महत्वपूर्ण स्थान। मैं भारत के इस असाधारण पुत्र की जन्म शताब्दी के लिए कोटि कोटि शुभकामनाएं देती हूं प्रधानमंत्री। भाई हमारा तो न सुनो, मगर आप इंदिरा जी का भी नहीं सुनते हो। और मान्यवर आपके माध्यम से ना सब बीच में नहीं जगह होती है। मान्यवर मेरा आज इस चर्चा के माध्यम से देश भर के अलग अलग पॉलिटिकल पार्टी, अलग अलग विचारधारा, अलग अलग धर्म के लोगों को एक निवेदन है कि देशभक्ति, वीरता, बलिदान और समर्पण को धर्म के साथ, विचारधारा के साथ या पार्टी के साथ मत जोड़िए। जो वीर होता है वो वीर होता है, कोई भी पार्टी में जो होता है। जो देशभक्त होता है वो देशभक्त होता है, कोई भी विचारधारा का होता है, और जो बलिदान देता है वो बलिदान ही देता है, किसी भी धर्म के अंदर जन्म लिया हो। मान्यवर, ये बहुत नीचा विचार है, एक स्तर से नीचा विचार, और मैं चाहता हूं कि आज की चर्चा से देश की जनता इस प्रकार के चीजों का जवाब मांगना शुरू करे। मान्यवर, कांग्रेस पार्टी ने, हमारे संविधान ने 3 चीजों को, हर आर्टिकल का हार्द निकालेंगे तो कहीं ना कहीं इसे और उठाएंगे। 3 चीजों को हमारे संविधान ने नहीं स्वीकारा, क्योंकि हम लोकतंत्र में हैं, परिवारवाद नहीं होना चाहिए, पंथ निरपेक्ष राष्ट्र है इसलिए तुष्टीकरण नहीं होना चाहिए, और जन कल्याणकारी राज्य है इसलिए भ्रष्टाचार नहीं होना चाहिए। मुझे कई बार लगता था कि कांग्रेस पार्टी क्यों संविधान का सम्मान नहीं करती है, मगर जब ये 3 शब्द मैंने पढ़े तो मुझे मालूम पड़ा कि अगर वो संविधान की भावनाओं का संविधान करेंगे, सम्मान करेंगे, तो तुष्टीकरण, परिवारवाद और भ्रष्टाचार तीनों को छोड़ना पड़ेगा, इसके बगैर उनका अस्तित्व टिक ही नहीं सकता। परंतु एक व्यक्ति गरीब के घर से जन्म लेकर आता है, चाय बेचने वाला बेटा, जिसकी सास पुश्तों में न आगे कोई राजनीति में है ना कोई पीछे है, एक गरीब है मान्यवर, और तुष्टीकरण को नहीं मानता है। ऐसा आदमी जब 2014 में देश का प्रधानमंत्री बना, इन्होंने देश की राजनीति को तुष्टीकरण, परिवारवाद और भ्रष्टाचार के नासूर को हमेशा के लिए, और मुझे किसी ने कहा कि अभी अभी महाराष्ट्र और हरियाणा में हार के लिए कांग्रेस पार्टी कोई आत्मनिरीक्षण के लिए कमेटी बना रही है। कोई कमेटी की जरूरत, मेरा अच्छा खासा अनुभव है, तुष्टीकरण, परिवारवाद और भ्रष्टाचार छोड़ दो, जनता चुनकर ला देगी आपको, कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं है। मान्यवर, अभी 1 नेशन 1 इलेक्शन का विरोध करें। मान्यवर, मैं इस पर ज्यादा बात करना नहीं चाहता क्योंकि समिति ने शीश किया है, मगर विरोध करते हैं, इसके तर्क तो रखने चाहिए ना। मान्यवर, मैं आज आपको बात कहने आया हूं। अभी मैंने कुछ समय में मोहब्बत की दुकान के बहुत नारे सुने। मोहब्बत की दुकान देश के हर गांव में खोलने की महत्वाकांक्षा वाले लोग भी, बहुत भाषण उनके मैंने सुने हैं। मेरा उनको कहना है, मोहब्बत दुकान से बेचने की चीज नहीं है भैया, मोहब्बत प्रचार की चीज नहीं है, मोहब्बत दिल में बसाने का जज्बा है, और मोहब्बत दूसरों को महसूस कराने का लम्हा है। अगर इतना समझ जाएंगे तो और कोई तकलीफ नहीं पड़ेगी। मान्यवर, अंत में मैं इतना कहना चाहता हूं कि आजादी के अमृत महोत्सव में इस देश के प्रधानमंत्री जी आजादी के अमृत महोत्सव को बहुत अच्छे तरीके से एक वेल डिजाइन मैनर में मनाने का निर्णय किया। पूरे लाखों कार्यक्रम हुए, इसका मीन निकालते, इसका हार्द निकालते तो आता है 3 उद्देश्य सामने आते हैं। बालकों, बच्चे, युवा और जनता को आजादी के 90 वर्ष लंबे आजादी के संग्राम के इतिहास की जानकारी देना, गुमनाम आजादी के सेना नायकों का नई पीढ़ी और आने वाली पीढ़ी को परिचय कराना, 75 साल में हमने जो सिद्धियां प्राप्त की है इसका गौरव 140 करोड़ भारतीयों के मन में उत्पन्न करना, और जब आजादी के 100 साल हो गए तब ये देश पूरे संसार में हर क्षेत्र में नंबर 1 पर हो, ऐसे महान भारत की रचना। और ये संकल्प अब श्री नरेंद्र मोदी का नहीं रहा है, ये संकल्प देश के 140 करोड़ लोगों का संकल्प हो गया है। इसको जब भी मैं जनता के बीच में जाता हूं, इसको महसूस भी करता हूं। मान्यवर, आज मोदी जी ने अमृत काल की कल्पना करी है। अमृत महोत्सव की समाप्ति से शताब्दी तक हम दुनिया में हर एक क्षेत्र में 1 नंबर पर हो, भारत विकसित हो, हमारा गौरववंत स्थान हो, तब मुझे लगता है कि महर्षि अरविंद और विवेकानंद जी ने जो कल्पना करी थी कि भारत माता अपने संपूर्ण दैदीप्यमान स्वरूप के साथ दुनिया के सामने खड़ी होगी और दुनिया की आंखें भारत माता की तेज से चकाचौंध हो जाएगी, वो स्वप्न सच होगा, इसका मुझे विश्वास है। स्वप्न सच करने का रास्ता, एकमात्र रास्ता हमारा संविधान है और इसमें छेड़खानी करने का किसी का साहस न हो, वो जनता ने सुनिश्चित करना है। आपने मुझे मौका दिया, इसलिए बहुत बहुत
stands adjourned to meet at 11 a.m. on Wednesday, the 18th December 2024.
So there you have it, Union Home Minister Amit Shah concluding the two-day debate in the upper house, the Rajya Sabha, on the Constitution debate. It was an hour and 35 minutes plus. When the Union Home Minister spoke about the Samvidhan, it was a point-by-point attack on the Congress Party and the Congress Party's history, as he put it, of repeatedly misusing the Constitution, of repeatedly changing the Constitution, amending the Constitution. There were direct attacks on what Rahul Gandhi said about Veer Savarkar, saying how can the bravery of any individual associated with the freedom struggle, how can that be colored with a partisan or political lens? And finally, Rahul Gandhi's famous Mohabbat Ki Dukaan slogan, Amit Shah hit back, saying that Mohabbat is not a commodity that is being sold in shops. Let's try and bring this into perspective. Union Home Minister Amit Shah concluding that debate, the two-day Constitution debate in the Rajya Sabha, this to mark the 75th anniversary of the adoption of the Indian Constitution. He tore into the Congress time and again for what he called trampling upon the Constitution. He compared the top 4 amendments made in the Constitution that were brought about by the Congress and by the BJP, saying that the Congress's changes to the Constitution curtailed the freedom of speech, it curtailed fundamental rights, it imposed emergency, while the BJP's amendments uplifted backward classes. He also called out the Congress for its vote bank politics, raking up the Shah Bano case from 1985, taking a unveiled jibe at Rahul Gandhi. Shah also said that some politicians at the age of 54 called themselves young and accused the BJP of changing or trampling upon the Constitution. He also reminded the opposition of the provisions in the Constitution for amendments to be made. So 1 hour 35 minutes plus, Mr. Amit Shah, the Union Home Minister, bringing to a conclusion this two-day debate on the Constitution in the upper house, the Rajya Sabha. Payal Mehta is now joining us. She's been tracking the developments there through the course of this debate. So some major attack points by the Union Home Minister. Just highlight for us some of those attack lines, if you will, and whether or not this has been a befitting conclusion to the two-day Constitution debate.
Every time that the BJP has gotten up and spoken about the emergency, the Congress party has come out and hit out at them, Zaka, saying that how can you speak about the same issue? But the Home Minister said in a very boisterous tone that he wants every child in this country to learn it by heart what really the perils of this emergency really was. That was a full-thrown attack as far as the Home Minister is really concerned. As far as the Savarkar issue was concerned, he wanted to place this on record because the opposition parties have always been attacking Veer Savarkar. Essentially, that is something which the Home Minister said that, Indira Gandhi herself praised him. So if you don't want to listen to us, it's okay. Why are you trying to even dismiss what Indira Gandhi really had said? So a boisterous speech by the Home Minister, 1 hour and 38 minutes, filled with a lot of facts, filled with a lot of attacks from the Congress party. Possibly the first time that is referred to that joke that the opposition party have had to face as far as Mohabbat Ki Dukaan is really concerned. The BRS has been, in particular, very, very critical of this phrase being used by the Congress party, in particular by Rahul Gandhi and his team. So that's something which you have seen. You have seen the Home Minister speak about the importance of the Constitution, the provisions of the Constitution, how it was used to appease certain quarters, and how the Modi government has brought about that change. They agreed that yes, they amended the Constitution, but only for the welfare of the people. So obviously, the two-day debate comes to an end, and it's going to be a sharp reaction that we're expecting now from the opposition parties to really come to what the Home Minister has been saying.
All right, Payal, we'll leave it at that. I want to get quick comments from our BJP and Congress guests on Amit Shah's speech and the conclusion of this debate before we open up and move on to the one election, one nation poll debate. We'll get to that in 1 second. But let me introduce our guest, Pradeep Bhandari, national spokesperson of the BJP, Dr. Shama Mohammed, national spokesperson of the Congress Party, Pradeep Bhati of the Samajwadi Party, and Deepak Reddy of the TDP are also joining us. Let me start with Pradeep Pradeep Bhandari here in our studios. So, you think this is a fitting finale, a conclusion to the constitution debate? Every time the opposition said Samvidhan khatre mein hai. Now the Prime Minister back on Saturday and today the Home Minister have put that to rest, that no one can tinker with the constitution, can mishandle the constitution.
Well, absolutely, Zaka, and the Honorable Prime Minister and the Honorable Home Minister has laid it out in front of the people of India that the Constitution of India has to be protected from the Congress party, because the Constitution of India was trampled only once, in particular by Indira Gandhi, by imposing the emergency. And the series of imposing and finishing the constitution was started by Jawaharlal Nehru when he first he imposed a restriction on freedom of speech, where he was against Baba Sahib Ambedkar becoming the chairman of the drafting committee, where he used the amendment power more than 200 times, the executive order, where he removed the first democratically elected communist government, where Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru in totality used the Article 356 for more than 90 times. So they are anti-constitutional, they are anti-Dalit, they are anti-people of India, and they even amended the preamble of India. They even curtailed the power of the judiciary. So if the Constitution of India has to be saved, it is from the Congress party. And this, thank God for this debate, that at least people of India are aware about the vicious agenda of Shama Mohammed and the Congress
Shama
party.
Mohammed, so the Home Minister also spoke about Veer Savarkar, saying how can you ridicule the sacrifice that anyone has made for the nation, whether they belong to right or left. Balidan hota hai. And then he signed off with a sort of a jibe at Mohabbat ki dukaan, which is Rahul Gandhi's famous dialogue, saying Mohabbat koi cheez nahi hoti jo dukaan mein milta hai.
See, he is being first and foremost a hypocrite. He says, how can you talk against Savarkar? What is he doing from morning to night, speaking against Pandit Nehru, who was in the freedom struggle? It is not just in here, it is in the history of the world that Pandit Nehru took part in the freedom struggle. And he was there with Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and Ambedkar and many others in this freedom struggle. So the question, and he was in jail for more than 10 years. So why are they taking away this from Pandit Nehru? Why are they abusing Pandit Nehru? Just imagine, we were left bankrupt. We had partition. And can you imagine if Mr. Narendra Modi was in power at that point, or the RSS? We would have civil war. There wouldn't have been any of these steel industries. We would not have GAIL. We would not have any of this, what we are having, the infrastructure, the Bharat Petroleum. Nothing would have been there, because there would have been continuous civil war between two different communities and the rest. So what he did at that point is he had this scientific thought process where he thought better to focus on that than to different caste, creed, religions. And that's what he did. He took the country ahead, depending upon how we got the country from the British, completely bankrupt. Our education status at that point was what, 20%? We have reached 76%. So look at the change. No, wait, let me finish. No, he was abusing. So he keeps abusing us. He says, what have you done? What have you done? I just want to ask him one thing. There is Narendra Modi. This party called Bharatiya Janata Party was formed by two individuals, Atal Bihari Vajpayee and L.K. Advani. In 2014, when Narendra Modi won, the man who saved him was L.K. Advani. Let's not forget, in 2002. He saw to that he continued as a CM. My question today to this man sitting here, why didn't he make him the Home Minister? Why didn't he do that? Because he's a self-centered, selfish, narcissist person who thinks only about himself. Did not even give back to L.K. Advani. He compares us always.
Who after Haryana election said that Congress party, only the Muslims vote for the Congress party. Shama Mohammed, your Talibani agenda will not work here. Your Talibani, no, you can't go personal here. Your Talibani agenda will not work here. Your Talibani agenda was open in Twitter when you deleted your tweet saying that only the Muslims vote for you.
This doesn't work, Zaka. I'm sorry.
No, one second. The reason why we got comments from both Congress and BJP spokespersons was because the Home Minister's speech just concluded. I want to move to the debate that I want to focus on tonight, ma'am, with your permission. With your permission, please. Let's move to the most substantive issue. The substantive issue and the debate on brass tacks tonight is on the One Nation, One Election bill, which the government today introduced in the Lok Sabha. It's an ambitious one. The government's argument is that in India we have elections for far too often, virtually every 6 months. There is some state election or local body election that's happening, and the government's contention is this impedes or curtails actual governance and it leads to politicking. They have backed the Kovind Committee recommendations to move towards simultaneous elections starting from 2034. The opposition is opposed to this tooth and nail, saying that this is anti-democratic, anti-federal, and this will kill regional parties. So the question is, ONOP or One Nation, One Poll, is this an idea whose time has come, or is it a non-starter because the government does not have the two-thirds majority required to pass it in Parliament?
I beg to move for leave to introduce the Constitution 129th Amendment Bill.
जिस दिन हमारी इकॉनमी 10 और 10:30 और 11 के बीच में पहुंच जाएगी, इकॉनमी की लाइन में जो 3 या 4 देश खड़े होंगे, उसमें उस पंक्ति में हमारा देश भी खड़ा होगा।
हमारी पार्टी शिवसेना और हमारे नेता एकनाथ जी शिंदे साहब की ओर से हम इस बिल का पूरी तरीके से समर्थन करते हैं।
This bill will finish off regional parties. This bill is only brought in to massage the ego of the supreme leader.
ये इस बिल में कहीं भी आघात नहीं हो रहा है, कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा है इसमें। जो बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर में कहीं भी कोई छेड़छाड़ नहीं की जा रही है।
All right, so One Nation, One Election, is it feasible? Is it possible? Is it an idea whose time has come, or is it simply a non-starter or a pipe dream? Our political panel is still with us here on Brass Tacks. Dr. Shama Mohammed, let me ask you first. The government's contention is, and you heard the Law Minister who moved the bill today, that 80% of the responses from political parties favoured simultaneous elections. The Kovind Committee spoke to 47 political parties, 32 of whom backed simultaneous polls. Only 15 parties said no, including the Congress Party. Top legal, election, business experts, organizations like CII, FICCI, ASSOCHAM, etc. are all backing the proposal on the simple logic that you will save cost and it is not anti-democratic. Why is the Congress Party opposed to it, despite the fact that from 1952 to 1967, during Pandit Nehru's rule for 15 years, we had simultaneous elections. So if it was not anti-democratic then, how can it be anti-democratic now?
So first and foremost, at that point of time, you did not have this number of parties. There was just the Congress Party and a few others. Now, the 32 parties, which you said correctly, is those who are aligned with the NDA, and the 15 are those who are with the India Alliance. And this is the reason why one is going against it is, let's understand one thing. You have the Vidhan Sabha and the Lok Sabha together. But the local body elections, if you see the report of the COVID, is after 100 days. Once you have to, after these 100 days, within after they finish this, in 100 days, you have to get all the polling agents, 15 million polling agents, you need to get them trained, get the polling booths back. That is point number one. Point number two, in this particular report, it says that the government falls. For example, in a Vidhan Sabha, in assembly, suppose, let's say we go for this in 29. In 29, around 33, the government, 32, the government falls. 34 will be the, 34 is the election. Then they say that you can go in for a midterm election, but that again will happen after that midterm election. In 34, you will have again another election. So for a year, there will be an election, all right? You will have to, the candidate has to spend money on that election. Every polling agent, everything will be involved. So I fail to understand, how do you cut down costs when you will have a midterm election when a state assembly falls? And the other thing is, what we have to notice is that this period of it, which is being so elongated,
okay,
there will be various changes happening. And also when you have the Lok Sabha and the Vidhan Sabha, the national parties will go along, especially BJP now, which is in power. Whereas the federalism, which our structure is based on federalism, how does that continue with this sort of thing? And the cost of the EVMs, it is 10,000 crores every 15 years you have to spend. So I fail to understand how are you going to cut costs
Okay.
when you have one election.
So let me ask Pradeep Bhandari here. The opposition's contention is the bill tinkers with the basic structure of the constitution. You are expressly barred from doing so in the Keshwananda Bharati judgment. The bill is against federalism. It impacts the terms of the assemblies. Parliament has no role in the terms of the assemblies. It needs ratification from the state assemblies if you want to change the structure of state assemblies and local body elections. Also, the bill is beyond the legislative competence of the Lok Sabha because terms of state assemblies cannot be curtailed by Lok Sabha. This is anti-federal. We have tens of regional parties and only effectively two national parties, Congress and BJP, who stand to benefit from simultaneous elections. All regional parties will be at the receiving end.
Zaka, let me argue this on the basis of constitutional morality and past precedent and certain facts. Now, point number one, let us admit this, and the reality is that the vision of the constitution makers was to have one nation, one election. This is why 3 successive elections happened as one nation, one election. Even in 1967, only for pure political reasons, one nation, one election the entire cycle was disrupted. After that, you had the Supreme Court ensuring that no party can impose Article 356 and abuse Article 356 like the Congress party has done. That is point number one. So the reservation of imposing Article 356 for political purposes like Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi had done completely sets aside because the Supreme Court has imposed strict guidelines. Point number one. Point number two, in the 1967 election, which was the last one nation, one election, there were 6 places where the Congress party, despite being the monolithic party at that time, could not win. That was, if I recall very correctly, it was Odisha, it was Uttar Pradesh, it was Kerala, it was Bengal and the other 2 provinces. So even in 1967, when the Congress was a monolithic party with not many regional parties being present, Congress could not win larger provinces. Go back to 1932, the franchisee committee report, where the provincial election and the assembly elections happened at the same time. Not a single parliamentary committee, not a single law commission, not a single election commission recommendation has recommended against one nation, one election since 1983.
No,
I have the recommendation.
Pradeep, one second.
Yes.
Let's get to the brass tacks.
Yes.
Because this show is called Brass Tacks. One second, ma'am.
Yes.
You know, ultimately, for a constitutional amendment,
Yes.
you need 2/3 of the
Yes.
members present and voting.
Correct.
Today, when the bill was introduced,
Yes.
right, 269 NDA MPs were there and voted for. You have 294 in this 18th Lok Sabha. Not even all of your MPs came and voted. How are you going to get 2/3, which is 362?
Zaka, we have the past track record. We have the past track record of even abrogating Article 370, and this bill will be passed through consensus and constitutional law. We are not like Indira Gandhi, who disimposed the quorum, which was tried to disimpose the quorum which was there in Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, where at least 10% of the members have to be present. So all the constitutional norms have to be followed. In fact, it's a further lengthy process, Zaka, where it has to be ratified with more than 50% plus of state assemblies.
Yes.
So that is the part of procedure. I am talking about the intent of it. The intent of it is to reimpose what the constitution makers had thought about. And allow me to just reiterate one thing. When the second report on the elections in 1957 had happened, where the Congress party was in power, where all political parties agreed to 3 primary principles. A, all the polls should be held simultaneously without any long break. At that time in 1957, it was not the BJP, it was the Congress party. B, all the election has to be completed within 15 days. This is the Congress party. So the Congress party in an all-party meeting in 1957 said, have elections together. So what is the problem now?
Okay. So let me ask Pradeep Bhati and Mr. Reddy of the TDP, since they represent regional parties. Mr. Bhati, the BJP's contention is this is not anti-regional because no amendment is going to be made to either the union list or the state list or the concurrent list. They also say that this does not tamper with the basic structure of the constitution, which is arguably just the division of power between the various branches of government, executive, legislature and judiciary. That parliament can make laws about state assemblies. Most notably, most recently, you had the 371, which was made by parliament, which involved a state legislature. And the government's contention is also that Article 327 of the Constitution allows provisions, allows power to the Lok Sabha to amend the Constitution to have simultaneous elections. How do you respond to this, Mr. Bhati?
Thank you, Jacob, and good evening to all. In democracy, one, me, myself, and ek akela sab pe bhari mindset itself is undemocratic. Democracy favors plurality, and it won't stop at one nation, one election. Then BJP will go ahead and one nation, one party, and then go ahead with one nation, one leader. And that leads to a dictatorship. In a way, another conspiracy like poll rigging to destroy the Constitution of India. There are three important reasons given behind one nation, one election is. One is cost saving, second is save time, and third is policy paralysis will be avoided. Now let me come to the point one, which is cost. The estimated cost for 2014 is 1.35 lakh crore as published by India Today, India TV and other. And more, approximately 50% is spent by the BJP itself. That comes to 60,000 crores. So let first walk the talk. Whatever you are suggesting, first reduce. Let me ask the richest party of India to follow what they are saying. If you want to spend, reduce the cost, do it right now. Don't linger it like a women reservation bill, which we have done for another, put that into another 10 years bucket. And second thing, there is a limit of per candidate, that is 95 lakhs to be spent by the each MP candidate. And there is no limit of political party spending. So point number two, do that first. The richest party doing the excellent expenditure, stop it there and then decide that what is your total expenditure that you are doing 60,000 crores of spending. So first do that. Second point about the saving of timing. We cannot, when you cannot do a by-poll in a single phase and you are expecting to do assembly and Lok Sabha election and also the local, if I am right on that, altogether it seems a far-fetched idea, nothing like you have done in the past to distract the public from the core issues of and the promises you have made, whether it's in unemployment, inflation, farmers issue, black money, smart cities. I can go on and on.
Let me ask Mr. Deepak Reddy of the TDP, as a regional party representative, and of course in Andhra Pradesh for the last many election cycles, we've had simultaneous assembly and national elections in the state of Andhra Pradesh. It used not to be that case before 1999. I think from 1999 onwards, there were simultaneous elections in Andhra Pradesh. So obviously you're in support of the idea. But how do you respond, Mr. Reddy, to the charge that ultimately when you have simultaneous elections, national issues and national parties will take precedence? Ultimately, the people who will get lost in this contest are regional parties like yours, because the regional will always be subsumed by the national, because there's a general election and within that general election there are elections for various state assemblies. How do you respond to that?
Zaka, we had a detailed discussion a year ago on this subject in the party, and we were aware that if one nation, one election comes, it is at a disadvantage of the regional parties. That was the stand of Telugu Desam party. But if you see, Chandrababu Naidu ji of recently has announced his support for the one nation, one election. So I think parties from around the country, smaller parties and regional parties, should take this as an example, because although it is slightly at a disadvantage for the regional parties, for the larger interest of the nation, Chandrababu Naidu ji has taken this decision to go with this. So this is the kind of positive attitude, I think, what most of the people should have in the country, most of the parties should have, because we have clear-cut reasons. If you look at the costing, I read some report which says that there would be a 30,000 crore saving for the government itself. And for the candidates in Andhra Pradesh, if you see, in the last general elections, an MLA spent between 40 to 60 crores per MLA segment. So we have to come up with such ideas to reform our election process also. Then we look Reddy, at
the cost, the impediment on cost or spending will still not come into place even if you have simultaneous elections, right? For that you need laws which say that candidates can't spend beyond a certain amount or political parties can't spend beyond a certain amount. They will still end up spending.
That's true. That's true. At least if both the MP and MLA comes together, they just pay once. So somewhat it is better. So see, more importantly, Zaka, I think this is important because you have certain factors from DMK who are giving anti-social comments or anti-national comments, you can say. So once we have a one nation, one election, then the national interests come ahead of the regional issues. So looking at the times, yes, we definitely have to see, and there are some places where the voter turnout is less than 50%. So considering all this, it is a positive step. Why should we stick to certain rules and say that, we have to do the old way itself? Whatever makes sense and whatever is good for us, we should look at it. One last thing. One last thing. I take a bet if we run a polygraph test on Rahul Gandhi ji on this, he will in his heart he will definitely also be pitching for one nation, one election, because he knows, we can have one grand defeat once, and then he can do his favorite job by traveling around the world and partying.
With the caveat of no personal attacks, let's ask Shama Mohammed to respond. Yeah.
I have huge respect for Chandrababu Naidu, and I will not attack him. I will not reach your level. I'm sorry to say that. This is very cheap on your part. I never expected TD to be at this level, this cheap level. Now, let me tell you one thing, Zaka. This year itself, we had Maharashtra and Haryana. You know that Maharashtra and Haryana were supposed to be together, but they put it separately, and they said the reason was festivals and security issues. I still remember, because Jammu and Kashmir was clubbed with Haryana. So if you couldn't do this much here, okay, you talk a lot, you have a committee, everything. If you couldn't do this much, you couldn't put these elections together, the 6 ones, you could have put Maharashtra, Haryana, Jammu and Kashmir and Jharkhand together to show us that we could do one nation, one poll. The other thing is, even in Jharkhand, you had 2 phases. You could have had 1 phase. So we have not only multiple, we have to get all the states together, one. And this time, Maharashtra and Lok Sabha had 5 phases. So in West Bengal, 7 phases. You also have phases. So how can you do this when you're unable to do this, when you have to showcase something? You can talk. And the other thing is, they got also from the public a lot of support, they say.
Okay.
They went to the public. No, let me finish this. This was done in Hindi and English. It's there in the report. Nothing in regional language. So how do we know? How did a Tamil Nadu respond? How did a Kerala respond? How did a West Bengal respond? A Tripura respond? And Gujarat also. See, you didn't have anything in local. In English and Hindi, you have asked people. So that is not fair to a country which has multiple regional languages. So
Okay.
my question to them today, show it to us that you can do it by conducting next year's election all in one.
Respond
The coming
to that
elections
point,
every year,
point, Pradeep
conduct
Bhandari.
it together. 26 plus Kerala, West Bengal,
Maharashtra,
all of them in
Jharkhand,
one shot.
Haryana have always polled together. This time you are not able to even hold 3 state elections together because of paucity of security forces.
Well, I'll answer that, but just 2 small rebuttals. It's too rich from the Samajwadi Party to speak about the Women Reservation Bill when it is the party which has historically opposed the Women Reservation Bill along with Lalu Prasad Yadav. This is late Mulayam Singh Yadav ji quoting that Samajwadi Party is against the Women Reservation Bill, and this is what they did in 2013. So first look inside your house. Number 2, Shama Mohammed speaking about cheap things is again too rich, particularly when Shama Mohammed on October 9, 2024, 11:16 AM after the Congress party lost Haryana said only the Muslims vote for the Congress party, nobody else. This is a respect for the constitution. Now let me answer your argument. Shama, why are you getting so agitated when I am quoting your tweet?
I'm not debating with kindergarten children.
No, you are a kindergarten person who comes and who after losing an election start crying like, a small baby. Don't cry on the debate. I was listening to you. Don't cry on the debate. Have some respect. At least respect Rahul Gandhi.
Let's argue on the substance.
No, I am arguing on a tweet. I just quoted a tweet. If she tweets kindergarten stuff, well, good enough.
Let's argue on the
I
substance.
am arguing on the substance.
No. Please answer.
I will.
Please answer the question that. One second, Dr. Mohammed. 1 second, please. The question that you asked needs to be answered.
I am answering.
If 3 state elections can't be held together, how are you going to hold Lok
Zaka,
Sabha and state assembly elections together?
I do believe that I'm not like the Congress party which has more faith in Hindenburg and agencies from abroad. I have faith in my election commission which could conduct simultaneous election in 1952, 57 and consecutively in 62. So it has done it. Even the 67 election, even though it was a simultaneous election, was a multi-phase election. So are you telling me that a body which could do it at the time when there was no technological prowess will not do it now?
I got to wrap
Shama
up.
Mohammed ji, aapki loyalty kidhar hai?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all our political party representatives. I want to go across to a special guest who's also joining us now on this. T.S. Krishnamurthy is former Chief Election Commissioner of India. Thank you very much, sir, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Do you think this idea of one nation, one election is the way forward? Is it desirable? Is it feasible, most importantly?
Well, as an administrator, I always welcome it. It's easier to manage. It has got many advantages, financial as well as managerial advantages. So it's certainly a desirable proposition. But then there are practical difficulties in implementing it. So we have to take adequate care to ensure that there is at least a reasonable consensus or reasonable acceptability among many people.
So what according to you, sir,
rather.
what according to you, sir, in your learned opinion, would be the biggest impediments or the hurdles or the practical difficulties that one would have to encounter if you have to implement one nation, one poll, if it were to become a reality?
The administrative challenges are particularly to maintain law and order during that period properly when you have election of such a large scale. So that is the first proposition that the Election Commission has to ensure that the elections are conducted. Personally, I feel that each day the election should be in one day in most of the states except some problem states where you have either terrorist or violence prone areas.
Okay.
But as far as possible, if you can ensure that the election is held in one day for each of the major, most of the states rather, then as an administrator I would be very comfortable in dealing with that. Secondly, the enforcement of model code of conduct, etc., that we have to make extra arrangements to ensure that the implementation of the model code of conduct is effectively done. For that, we may have to have more observers to watch what is happening around them. So these are some of the issues, and then financially it is probably good because when election is conducted simultaneously, the election expenditure is shared between the center and the states.
Okay.
But when it is done separately, suppose the parliament election is conducted separately, the entire expenditure of the parliament election will be borne by the center. And as far as the states elections are concerned, each of the states expenditure, the respective state will have to foot the bill. At least a share of it they have to put it. So there are certain practical issues to be dealt with, but as I said, as an administrator, I welcome a simultaneous polls.
I do also want to ask you, many state governments, particularly opposition-ruled state governments, many regional parties are apprehensive about one nation, one election. They are saying it's an attack on federalism, it's anti-democratic, anti-constitution. Is their fear valid or is it overblown?
I am conscious of that objection. It is to some extent maybe even true, but then what you look at the past experience, in many states, the voters have voted differently for the center and for the states differently.
Correct.
There has been no, mental pressure on the voters to vote only for a particular party, either for the center or for the states. They have their own freedom. It is true that in the campaign, etc., the dominant issues may be the federal issues and not the state issues. That could be possible. But that's where I think some kind of a reconciliation is desirable. Politically, these objections are raised, but you will be surprised that there is a parliamentary standing committee report where they have said it is ideal to have simultaneous poll, but in view of the practical difficulties, one of the suggestions made by that committee is to have elections once in 2.5 years or 2 years, as the case may be.
Yeah.
But all the same, as I said, there are many advantages in having a simultaneous election, particularly from the point of view of expenditure and from the point of view of administration.
Okay, Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy, former Chief Election Commissioner of India, thank you very much for joining us here on CNN News 18 with your thoughts on whether one nation, one election is possible, whether it's feasible, and most importantly, whether it is desirable. All right, talking about political survival, we'll take a break. When we come back, pressure is now mounting on embattled Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to step down. He's facing renewed calls for his immediate departure after one of his closest ministerial colleagues, the Finance Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, made a surprise announcement of quitting the cabinet because she apparently had significant differences of opinion with the Prime Minister. The clock is ticking, but will Trudeau throw in the towel? That's on the other side.
The government knows what is happening. Look, our military knows where they
जो अत्याचार हो रहा है माइनॉरिटीज पे, जो बांग्लादेश के हिंदू हैं, बांग्लादेश के ईसाई हैं, उसके बारे में कुछ करें, बात करें बांग्लादेश की सरकार के साथ, अत्याचार बंद कराएं।
देखिए, वो इंदिरा गांधी की पोती है, जवाहरलाल की परनातनी है, तो वो कुछ भी कर सकती हैं। उनको फिलिस्तीनी से प्रेम है, पाकिस्तानी से प्रेम है, बांग्लादेश से प्रेम है, उनको हिंदुस्तान से प्रेम नहीं।
अब राजनीति में बैग से राजनीति होगी, बैग से देश चलेगा, यही दुखद है। अब बैगवा तो हमहू लेके चला, कोनो बैग तो ही नहीं तो हम भी भगवा पहन लेंगे। अब इसे तो देश ना चली, देश चलता तर्क वितर्क करने से, विचारों से, विजन से। बैग से देश चलने लगा, बैग से क्या संदेश है हमको ये समझ में नहीं आता। अब वो जमाना गया है कि बैग दिखाएं और टोपा दिखाएं और टोपी दिखाएं, उससे नहीं चली। देश अब मोदी जी ने बातों से, कर्मों से, कार्यों से, ईमानदारी से, विजन से, दूरदृष्टा सोच से देश चलेगा। इकोनॉमी को स्ट्रांग करना है, बैग से देश नहीं चलता भैया।
ये प्रियंका वाड्रा का टोट बैग नहीं, ये प्रियंका वाड्रा का सिंबॉलिक वोट बैग है। एक नया बैग निकला है, माइनॉरिटीज ऑफ बांग्लादेश। अरे वाह प्रियंका जी, जरा बताइए ये माइनॉरिटीज कौन है, जरा नाम लेकर बताते ना। हिंदूज, वैसे तो आप बोलते रहते हैं पूरे देश में कि मुस्लिम्स आर अंडर थ्रेट, इस्लामोफोबिया है। यहाँ तो आइडेंटिफाई हो जाता है विक्टिम आपका, वहां पे विक्टिम आइडेंटिफाई नहीं हो रहा है आपका। बांग्लादेश में माइनॉरिटीज आर अंडर थ्रेट, वी स्टैंड विद माइनॉरिटीज, व्हाई नॉट से दैट यू स्टैंड विद हिंदू? साफ साफ क्यों नहीं बोलते? व्हाइट वॉशिंग का बैग है ये सिंबोलिज्म और टोकनिज्म की निशानी है ये। और सवाल ये बनता है कि माइनॉरिटीज और बांग्लादेश की चिंता आज कर रही हैं। सीए लॉ विरोध किसने किया? सीए लॉ जिसका पूरा का पूरा लक्ष्य था कि ऐसे प्रताड़ित लोगों को सुरक्षा दी जाए, उसका विरोध करने के लिए एक बैग कैरी कीजिए कि हम माफी मांगते हैं कि सीए का विरोध किया।
Well, what's there in a bag? Plenty if it's making a political point. That's exactly what Priyanka Gandhi Vadra did on day 2, when this time round she carried a bag saying that the minorities in Bangladesh need to be protected. She was of course referring to both the Hindus as well as the Christians. Remember when she carried an earlier bag on Palestine that had evoked a sharp response from the BJP, where they asked her this question that you're feeling very strongly for the Palestinians because of your vote bank politics. But what about the minorities being attacked in Bangladesh? At that point of time, she had rebutted by saying that I will wear what I want to. This is a deep-seated mindset of patriarchy where men will dictate to a woman what she wants to wear. Well, on day 2, she made that political point and tried to rebut the BJP in her own way by carrying a bag. It's a cloth bag. It also very clearly says that save the minorities of Bangladesh. With this, she hopes to silence her critics in the BJP and some outside as well, who indeed were asking that why is the Congress party making a mistake yet again as far as minority appeasement profile which is being projected. This question was also being asked that while you may feel strongly about the Palestinians, equal voice should have been raised and that show of solidarity should have taken place as far as the minorities in Bangladesh is concerned. Well, she did it, and in fact the Congress party has flaunted it. But interestingly, on the same day when she carried that pro-Bangladesh minority bag, the Congress also protested at the Makar Dwar. This was a decision which was taken at a meeting of the Congress party that we are going to rebut the BJP. At the meeting it was decided, and therefore you saw several Congress MPs carry a similar bag and also shouting slogans that why is the government not doing enough to protect the minorities of Bangladesh. Bags and women are identified. Many ask this question that why is a woman grudged her bag? But women politicians and bags have often evoked a very strong narrative, especially a political one.
Welcome back. Pressure is mounting on embattled Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to resign. His deputy and his finance minister and one of his longest serving colleagues in the cabinet, Chrystia Freeland, resigned in a surprise move that happened last night. She cited differences with Prime Minister Trudeau, particularly on the economic measures to be taken ahead of the inauguration of new US President Donald Trump. The Canadian Prime Minister is now barely clinging on to power, as over a third of the ruling Liberal Party MPs have openly called for a change in leadership. They've openly called for Mr. Trudeau to step down. allies are also calling for a change in the leadership amid a looming threat from new US President-elect Donald Trump, who's expected to impose a steep 25% tariff on all imports from Canada unless the border issue is fixed and unless the drug problem, which he claims there is a outpouring of fentanyl coming in from Canada as well as Mexico into the United States. Trump wants that fixed, and unless it is fixed, he's threatening to impose straight up 25% tariffs on both Canada and on Mexico. Now, here's why Trudeau's deputy and one of his most trusted and long-serving colleagues resigned in such a dramatic fashion last night. Number one, like I said, all of this is in response to Trump's threat of 25% tariff on Canadian goods. In fact, Trudeau had gone to Mar-a-Lago and met with Trump and begged him not to impose this steep tariff of 25%. Of course, Trump has not made any concessions or not said that he is willing to reconsider. Also, economists say that such a move, a 25% tariff on any Canadian export into the United States, would completely be detrimental and derail the Canadian economy at a time when inflation is going through the roof, housing prices are really skyrocketing, and ordinary Canadians are finding it difficult to put food on the table 3 times a day. There are also differences between Freeland and Trudeau over how to deal with these steep tariffs that Trump proposes to impose. The Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, in fact, wanted Trudeau to stop many of these popular SOPs. And yesterday, there was the budget equivalent, an accounting statement that she was supposed to present, in which Mr. Trudeau wanted an additional 20 billion Canadian dollars of new spending. That would mean that the federal deficit would go upwards of $60 billion, which would be at least $20 billion more than the $41.3 billion that Chrystia Freeland had promised as Finance Minister. Chrystia Freeland, in fact, said that Trudeau should stop all these costly political gimmicks. She said that Canadians know when we are batting for them and when we are batting for ourselves. Trudeau's SOPs had hiked Canada's deficit, like I said, to $42 billion already, which is the highest that Canada has seen in years. And if he were to impose another $20 billion of extra government spending, then it would take it upwards of $60 billion. Trudeau did not want Freeland as the top economic advisor. In fact, he did not take Chrystia Freeland to Mar-a-Lago when he visited there a few days ago in a desperate bid to plead and beg Donald Trump, the new US President-elect, from not imposing this 25% tariffs on Canadian imports. Also, Chrystia Freeland resigned, citing differences with Trudeau, saying that his economic outlook for Canada is not something that she shares. She could also be politically signaling to the rest of the Liberal Party, particularly to Liberal MPs, that she does not want her record and her political career, as it were, at least whatever is left of it, to be tied in the hip with that of Trudeau. Trudeau, of course, is extremely unpopular in Canada right now. Canada will be going to polls in about a year's time. By October of 2025 is when Trudeau officially has time till he calls the next election. He is, of course, facing multiple backlashes. He is 20 points behind in all the opinion polls that are doing the rounds in Canada, 20 points behind the Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. There is a massive economic crisis, a cost of living crisis, a housing crisis, and in the midst of all of this, of course, there's also the immigration crisis, all of which is adding huge burden on the country's tax-paying middle class. Also, he faces dissent from within his own party to try and counter the tariff threat that Trump has put. So much so, like I said, he had gone to Mar-a-Lago begging and pleading with Trump not to make good his promise of putting these 25% tariffs. Also, audits show that Canada is desperately falling short of its 2030 climate targets, which of course was a pet issue for Justin Trudeau. Also, there is significantly slow progress when it comes to welfare, water issue, land rights when it comes to Indigenous people. And like I said, immigration, almost unchecked, unrestricted immigration into Canada, and huge skyrocketing housing prices. These are seen as two huge red flags by the Canadian public, which has forced Trudeau to be almost 20 points behind in the elections. Of course, the big question is, will Trudeau read the writing on the wall and will he step down? He's due to make a big speech later tonight. Whether he will concede and whether he will step down, no politician voluntarily goes out, certainly doesn't go out without kicking and screaming. Let's see what ends up being Justin Trudeau's fate. But like I said, now a third of his supporters within the parliamentary constituency of his own Liberal Party have said that they do not support the Prime Minister. We'll keep an eye out on that story. It's the Hard Facts with Rahul Shivshankar up next.
Bonjour, madam.
जो अत्याचार हो रहा है माइनॉरिटीज पे, जो बांग्लादेश के हिंदू हैं, बांग्लादेश के ईसाई हैं, उसके बारे में कुछ करें, बात करें बांग्लादेश की सरकार के साथ, अत्याचार बंद कराएं।
देखिए, वो इंदिरा गांधी की पोती है, जवाहरलाल की परनातनी है, तो वो कुछ भी कर सकती हैं। उनको फिलिस्तीनी से प्रेम है, पाकिस्तानी से प्रेम है, बांग्लादेश से प्रेम है, उनको हिंदुस्तान से प्रेम नहीं।
अब राजनीति में बैग से राजनीति होगी, बैग से देश चलेगा, यही दुखद है। अब बैगवा तो हमहू लेके चला, कोनो बैग तो ही नहीं, तो हम भी भगवा पहन लेंगे। अब इसे तो देश ना चली, देश चलता तर्क वितर्क करने से, विचारों से, विजन से। बैग से देश चलने लगा, बैग से क्या संदेश है हमको ये समझ में नहीं आता। अब वो जमाना गया है कि बैग दिखाएं और टोपा दिखाएं और टोपी दिखाएं, उससे नहीं चली। देश अब मोदी जी ने बातों से, कर्मों से, कार्यों से, ईमानदारी से, विजन से, दूरदृष्टा सोच से देश चलेगा। इकोनॉमी को स्ट्रांग करना है, बैग से देश नहीं चलता भैया।
ये प्रियंका वाड्रा का टोट बैग नहीं, ये प्रियंका वाड्रा का सिंबॉलिक वोट बैग है। एक नया बैग निकला है, माइनॉरिटीज ऑफ बांग्लादेश। अरे वाह प्रियंका जी, जरा बताइए ये माइनॉरिटीज कौन है, जरा नाम लेकर बताते ना। हिंदूज, वैसे तो आप बोलते रहते हैं पूरे देश में कि मुस्लिम्स आर अंडर थ्रेट, इस्लामोफोबिया है। यहाँ तो आइडेंटिफाई हो जाता है विक्टिम आपका, वहां पे विक्टिम आइडेंटिफाई नहीं हो रहा है आपका। बांग्लादेश में माइनॉरिटीज आर अंडर थ्रेट, वी स्टैंड विद माइनॉरिटीज, व्हाई नॉट से दैट यू स्टैंड विद हिंदू? साफ साफ क्यों नहीं बोलते? व्हाइट वॉशिंग का बैग है ये सिंबोलिज्म और टोकनिज्म की निशानी है ये। और सवाल ये बनता है कि माइनॉरिटीज और बांग्लादेश की चिंता आज कर रही हैं। सीए लॉ विरोध किसने किया? सीए लॉ जिसका पूरा का पूरा लक्ष्य था कि ऐसे प्रताड़ित लोगों को सुरक्षा दी जाए, उसका विरोध करने के लिए एक बैग कैरी कीजिए कि हम माफी मांगते हैं कि सीए का विरोध किया।
Well, what's there in a bag? Plenty if it's making a political point. That's exactly what Priyanka Gandhi Vadra did on day 2 when this time round she carried a bag saying that the minorities in Bangladesh need to be protected. She was of course referring to both the Hindus as well as the Christians. Remember when she carried an earlier bag on Palestine that had evoked a sharp response from the BJP where they asked her this question that you're feeling very strongly for the Palestinians because of your vote bank politics. But what about the minorities being attacked in Bangladesh? At that point of time, she had rebutted by saying that I will wear what I want to. This is a deep-seated mindset of patriarchy where men will dictate to a woman what she wants to wear. Well, on day 2, she made that political point and tried to rebut the BJP in her own way by carrying a bag. It's a cloth bag. It also very clearly says that save the minorities of Bangladesh. With this, she hopes to silence her critics in the BJP and some outside as well who indeed were asking that why is the Congress party making a mistake yet again as far as minority appeasement profile which is being projected. This question was also being asked that while you may feel strongly about the Palestinians, equal voice should have been raised and that show of solidarity should have taken place as far as the minorities in Bangladesh is concerned. Well, she did it, and in fact the Congress party has flaunted it. But interestingly, on the same day when she carried that pro-Bangladesh minority bag, the Congress also protested at the Makar Dwar. This was a decision which was taken at a meeting of the Congress party that we are going to rebut the BJP. At the meeting it was decided, and therefore you saw several Congress MPs carry a similar bag and also shouting slogans that why is the government not doing enough to protect the minorities of Bangladesh. Bags and women are identified.
Dominates presents CNN News 18 Primetime Studio. You're live from the CNN News 18 primetime studio presented by Green Lamb Laminates. Viewers, it's turning out to be a very piquant time, a difficult time, a bumpy ride for the Congress party. The perception is fast gaining ground that the NDA has got the better of the party in the debate on the Constitution, with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Union Home Minister Amit Shah both exposing the party's allegedly duplicitous stance, call it what you want, on protecting the founding document of our republic. The Union Home Minister was particularly scathing today, diving deep into research that he seemed to be conjuring from the tips of his fingers, viewers, in Parliament to expose the Congress. Here's a sample of how he plucked the feathers out of the Congress party today. Listen in.
अभी मैंने इस चुनाव में